So we are team 476 and today we are going to present our credit analysis on Bharti Airtel. So this is the rating national and summary that you have come up with. So our rating for Bharti Airtel is BA1 with a negative outlook. And over the course of this presentation, you will see that we have analyzed along the verticals of business environment, the business strategy of the firm, the performance of Airtel, and of course the current debt level that the firm is there.
Let's start with the analysis of the telecom industry in which Bharti Airtel primarily operates. Now, if you look at the structure of the industry, it's a highly capital intensive industry where you need a lot of capital investments upfront, which is why we have seen fewer number of players in the industry. If you look at the current competitive scenario in the market, after the disruptive launch of Reliance Jio, there has been a number of mergers and consolidations which has taken place. We have seen players like Tata Docomo and Airtel leaving the market. We have seen the acquisition of Telenor by Airtel, and obviously the mega merger between Vodafone and Idea. Right? So the switching costs in the industry are also very less because the telecom services are mostly considered as a commodity, which has essentially led to an intense price competition among the major players. The major players after the launch of Reliance Jio had to slash their data and voice tariffs by about 50%, and currently the tariff for 1 GB of data stands at around 19 rupees. Now, if you look at the growth drivers, if you look at the size and market of the industry, India is the largest consumer of global data, and also it has the second largest telecom network service in the world. Indian telecom industry has been growing rapidly over the past 5 to 7 years, and one of the primary reasons behind it is the outreach in the rural parts of India. As we know, 70% of the population stays in rural India, and tele penetration, which is a parameter to gauge the outreach of the telecom services, has increased from about 33% in 2007 to 92% in 2018. So this has essentially increased the proportion of rural telecom subscription from about 33% in 2011 to 44% in 2018. The growth of the industry has also been fueled by the government policies. TRAI has essentially directed that the telecom operators should not have a call drop rate of more than 2%. And after the directions came in, we essentially saw a drop of call rates from 0.9% to about 0.5%. The government has essentially relaxed the FDI norms as well. In the telecom sector, the FDI cap has gone up from 74% to 100%.
Yeah, so analyzing the industry, we would now like to look at the strategy that Bharti Airtel is employing to move through this particular industry. So how we looked at it is that taking cue from the five-prong strategy that they have to the current sort of policies that they have put in place, we were able to see that overall their initiatives and efforts can be organized into these four buckets. So they have made certain changes to increase their top line, and at the same time they are trying to do a disciplined approach to reduce their costs as well. So first and foremost is the famous initiative by them to increase their average revenue per user. So they have started what is called the minimum recharge plan. This has been there now for both postpaid and prepaid customers. So the idea is to let out of those customers from the Airtel service from whom there is not that much of a margin contribution to Airtel itself, and to retain only premium customers so that they can provide a good amount of value added service to them, like Airtel Thanks, which they have started recently. And another thing is there has been around two steps, one towards the long-term vision of the firm and another towards reducing the operating costs that the firm is facing. One is the consolidation of the telecom tower companies. So Airtel is trying to consolidate its telecom tower unit with that of Vodafone Idea. So the idea here is that this will lead to a good amount of redundancy and reduction in operation cost. But the issue here is that the percentage of overlap between areas is very less. So we feel that the level of operational efficiency that they can achieve would be a little less. And moving on, Airtel has clearly stated that 4G is the place that it wants to concentrate on. So all the capital expenditure for the massive rollout of network or the operation expense that is facing in all the areas is with respect to 4G. But a particular thing that is concerning us is that as of now, the management from Airtel has not been so active in terms of participation for 5G. What we feel is over the course of time, 5G will be a space where there will be a lot of value-added services, be it IoT or any industrial internet for that matter. So leaving out on the 5G game would definitely affect the future prospects of the firm. And of course, the final part, which is more relevant to today's analysis, is with respect to the level of debt structure that they have. Given the auction that they have done for 4G and the continuing capex that they are going on with, their debt level has increased really high. And right now, their plan for capital infusion is the upcoming IPO of their African assets, which right now is one of the particular areas which are like a bright spots for the entire firm. So this impending capital infusion will see over the course of time how the debt and equity structures remain.
Let's take a look at the corporate governance and management of the firm. The board comprises of 12 members, out of which 50% of them are independent, which is not really a good sign. Now, if you look at the board, they met about 8 times in the last financial year, with an average attendance of close to 68%. We also observed that there were frequent absence of independent directors, which is again a red flag for the firm. If you look at other committees, like the important ones, like the audit committee and the nomination committee, around 60%, they have around 60% independence in those committees, but the good thing is they are led by independent directors. If you look at the new appointments, Airtel has taken a very aggressive step by appointing Mr. Adarsh Nair as the Chief Product Officer. He is supposed to lead the global products and platform and is expected to play a pivotal role in the digital transformation journey of Airtel. Now, this has been seen as an aggressive step by its competitors because of the history of Adarsh Nair. He was at Convoy and he was one of the main guys in the leading team, which essentially transformed the $25 million company to $1 billion company in no time. Let's take a look at Airtel's numbers. It has close to 21,000 employees. And it operates in about 16 countries, has more than 400 million subscribers globally, and has 8-9 subsidiaries, among which 14 of them are direct. Now we'll move on to
the financial analysis of it.
The financial analysis of it. Now, if we analyze the various financial statements of Airtel, we can clearly understand that the kind of pain it's going through because of the coming of Reliance Jio. Now, as we discussed earlier, that there has been a decrease in the prices of data and voice after the coming of Reliance Jio, and that is well reflected in the top line of Bharti Airtel. The revenues of Bharti Airtel decreased by about 15% in financial year 2018, and the operating income decreased by about 31%, which is of higher concern for the prospective investors and the lenders. Now, increased cost has also been one of the reasons for worry for them. They have not been able to enjoy the fruit of economies of scale because of the increased costs have been offsetting their margins. Now, if you look at the EBITDA margins has fairly stayed constant around 33-34% levels, which essentially says that they are not able to enjoy the fruits of the economies of scale. If you look at the cash flows of the firm, they have very volatile cash flows. 2 of the last 4 years had negative cash flows, which is not really a good sign. The good sign, however, has been that there has been a gradual increase in the cash flow from operations, which has been handsomely rewarded by the market as well. They have a price to cash flow of operations ratio of close to 7.7, right? Now, if you look at the various avenues by which they create revenue, the contribution towards that has fairly been stable over the period of time. Can you move on to the next slide?
So, given that we have seen the financial performance, now understanding the liquidity that the firm is facing right now, this is a particular place where we feel that the firm's performance is really not up to the mark, and there are a few red flags with respect to how their debt repayment is going to be down the line. So the first and foremost is, of course, given the capex and all the expenditures that they have been having, their debt has been mounting. That's a fact. So with respect to net debt to EBITDA, that is a ratio which has been growing, even though it has been growing through a quite slower slope, but it's growing already. And another thing is, what we focused on is their interest coverage ratio. Given the sort of increase in obligations that they have been having over the course of years, even though the cash flow from operations seem to have maintained a fairly good pace given the sort of market situations that they are in, but their ability to sort of repay the obligations over the course of future is something where we have a little bit of concern. So we analyzed the working capital and the cash flow, And a comprehensive analysis which we used here is obviously the Altman Z score. So looking at the working capital and the revenue margins with respect to the total assets and liability, we came out with a score of 1.79. Now, an Altman score of 1.8 or below means there is impending financial stress. So we feel that as far as the ability to pay up their dues in the near future is something that's going to be a cause of concern for Airtel. Now moving on to the capital structure. So, given the rising debt, what we're able to see is the debt to equity ratio has been at around 1.4 right now, and of course, there has been certain amount of efforts from Airtel to draw down its debt as much as possible. But what we have observed is more than the mixture of the debt, it is how in what tenure or in what period of time are these debt going to mature. So, breaking down the debt of the firm, we were able to see that more than half of the debt has to be paid within another 5 years. And now this is the time where the firm is in a particular sort of a tumultuous situation because their business strategy has changed with respect to attracting premium customers. They have been bleeding out on the customers, and the entire plan is yet to give some sort of fruits. So next 5 years, when they have to retire around 56% of their debt, we feel that this will be a major problem for them over the due course. Now, moving on to equity, one thing we were able to see is that around two-thirds of the equity shareholding is by the principal shareholder, Airtel, either through themselves or through certain other vehicles. Now, while this is a good thing in terms of how fast decisions can be taken on the board level and in the top management level and how well it can be executed, what we feel is with the impending IPO that they are going to have through their African business, that interest will obviously reflect itself in India and the shareholding pattern might dilute a little bit.
Now let's move on to the key investment risks for the prospective investors or lenders. We have divided the risk into three parts: financial risk, operational risk, and regulatory risks. If you look at financial risks, Airtel has been going huge at capital investments in order to enhance the network in terms of outreach and quality. Now, huge capital investments has essentially led to higher levels of leverage, which my friend has been talking about. Right now, they have been trying to deleverage the debt by in forms of IPOs or raising equity shares in Africa. Now, some of them have been successful. They have been able to raise equity from major players like SoftBank and Temasek, but a lot of IPOs are impending, which essentially poses a risk for the prospective investors and lenders. Now, if we move on to the operational risks, one of the major initiatives done by Airtel is to increase the ARPU. Now, to do that, they have increased the minimum recharge plan, and which has also essentially led to the decrease in the customer base. Now there always has been a trade-off between the increase in ARPU and the amount of subscriber base which you have, which definitely is a risk for the firm. Now, as discussed earlier, they have also foregone their opportunity to bid for the 5G spectrum, which could have provided a lot of opportunities to add value to the firm in the future. If you look at the regulatory risks, the government has been very strict as far as DTH blackouts and call rate drops are concerned, which might be a thing to worry for Airtel as the competition intensifies and their operation expenses keep on going down, right?
Yeah, actually, I think by looking at all these three risks, we can say that pretty much on all these three aspects, it's kind of been bitter for Airtel right now. And over the course of time, also, things are not looking so much up. So, concluding our presentation on that note, we were able to see through these various metrics on what is the credit standing of Airtel is right now. And of course, they have taken a lot of initiatives to increase their top line, reduce their costs or whatnot. But what we have seen is there has been a continued presence of high operating cost, which is a negative thing. And yeah, their books have been highly levered. And given the tenure of the leverage is also a cause of concern here. And the next thing is there has still been continued consumer migration in a really enormous pace. And we feel that it will take quite some time for them to move a complete turnaround. And on added on to that, there is a structural issue with the industry right now because it's highly consolidated and there is a continued price competition. One silver lining in here is, as we said earlier, is the impending IPO. But to rest your entire gamble on one particular thing is not generally great. Another thing is the IPO also has a couple of stages to go through before you can see the light of day. So having this entire picture aside, we feel it is kind of bleak right now for Airtel, and that's why we are giving the outlook of PA1 with a negative outlook towards the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.